The early morning sunlight filtered through the vibrant stained glass windows of St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, casting shimmering rainbows across the marble floor. Ethan Caldwell, a 28-year-old white millionaire, stood at the altar, his hands continually adjusting the platinum cufflinks on his sleeves. He wasn't nervous. It was a rush of happiness, knowing that in just 30 minutes, Maya Johnson, the black woman who had turned his world upside down, would step through those grand doors to become his wife, partner, and everything. "Stop fidgeting," whispered his best man, Tom. But Ethan barely heard him. His deep blue eyes were fixated on the towering oak doors at the entrance, as if by sheer will, he could open them instantly, revealing the woman who had transformed his once sterile, preordained world into one filled with color and freedom. Ethan was the epitome of the perfect son, an MBA from Harvard at 25, vice president of Caldwell Enterprises at 28. Every decision in his life had been filtered through the rigid lens of his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, a powerful widow in New York's upper class. But then Maya came into his life. Maya, with a radiant smile that made board meetings seem trivial. Maya challenged his conservative views and made his dream of things larger than profit. Maya, who saw him not as Eleanor's heir, but simply as Ethan, a man who left clumsy voice messages when stressed and secretly fed stray cats behind the office building. With Maya, Ethan felt alive, not merely existing. In the front row, Eleanor sat like a queen, her pearl-colored Chanel suit hugging her frame, flashing the perfect smile for the society photographers. But behind her elegant exterior, she couldn't hide her disdain for this wedding. From Maya's lowly family background to the choice of venue, even the wedding flowers, everything displeased her. "Peonies, darling? How tacky," she had told Ethan, her tone cold enough to freeze a glass of champagne. And her family, they're trying hard to fit in. But Ethan had learned to tune out his mother's subtle criticisms months ago. Today wasn't about Eleanor. Today was about love, a love pure, defiant, and unconstrained by societal expectations or his mother's approval. As the first notes of the organ played, Ethan's heart seemed to stop. The church doors opened, and Maya appeared like a living poem. Her champagne-colored silk dress hugged her body, flowing like liquid starlight. Her deep, radiant skin shimmered beneath the thin fabric, and her brown eyes, the same eyes that had entranced him from the moment they met at a charity auction, now locked with his in an unwavering devotion. She held a bouquet of white roses mixed with peonies, a small act of rebellion Ethan had insisted on, making him smile despite the tears threatening to fall. Her father, Robert Johnson, a retired electrician, walked beside her with quiet pride, his rented tuxedo barely hiding the contrast with the designer suits around him. Behind them, Maya's sister Chloe, the maid of honor, beamed a warm, sincere smile, starkly contrasting with the Caldwell side's polite applause. As Maya approached the altar, Ethan briefly caught a glimpse of his mother's expression. Eleanor's smile remained flawless, but her eyes were cold as winter glass, silently assessing every detail of a marriage she couldn't prevent. A shiver ran down Ethan's spine, but then Maya's gloved hand slid into his, and the world disappeared. "How do I look?" Ethan whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Maya replied as the man I'm about to marry, her eyes sparkling with mischief and deep love. "Exactly that." The ceremony unfolded with sacred vows. Ethan's voice rang out clearly as he vowed, "I, Ethan, take you, Maya, as my wife, to love, to cherish, and to choose you every day for the rest of my life, in front of all these people, and especially in front of those who doubt us. I promise our love will be stronger than any storm." Maya's vow almost made him cry, I, Maya, take you, Ethan, not for convenience or expectation, but because you see the real me. You make me braver, kinder, and more myself than I ever thought I could be. I promise to love you, not just in the easy moments, but especially when loving you takes courage and trust. Their first kiss as husband and wife sparked a round of applause that shook the church. But all Ethan heard was the pounding of his own heart and the soft breath of Maya by his lips. The wedding reception at the Caldwell estate was a picture of contrast. The garden twinkled with lights, champagne flowed like rivers, and the 12-piece orchestra played everything from classical waltzes to modern love songs. Maya's family danced with unrestrained joy, while the Caldwell guests communicated with polite caution, interspersed with whispered judgments. "She's lovely, of course," Ethan overheard Mrs. Peterson say to another lady, her tone condescending. "But her family. I hear her father does manual labor." The protective anger surged within Ethan. His jaw clenched, but Maya's gentle hand on his arm kept him calm. "Let them," she whispered, her voice confident. "We know who we are and, more importantly, what we have." Ethan pulled Maya close in their first dance under the lights, whispering, "Do you regret marrying into this circus of judgment?" Maya laughed, her voice like silver bells in the night wind. "Are you kidding? I just married my best friend, the love of my life. The rest is just noise, and it will fade." But that moment was interrupted when Eleanor appeared like a ghostly specter. "Ethan, darling, you must greet the Petersons. They've been waiting for quite some time to congratulate you." Ethan reluctantly let Maya go to eat cake, his eyes following her through the glowing garden. Maya laughed with her relatives, her face glowing with genuine happiness, her voice warm as she shared stories and dreams. She was confident and graceful among people who saw her as an outsider. This was why Ethan had fought with his mother for 2 years. This was why he had threatened to run away when Eleanor suggested waiting a little longer to ensure you were compatible. Maya's sincerity, in a world full of scheming, was the antidote to his soul. Near midnight, when the guests had left, Ethan found Maya sitting on a bench in his mother's rose garden. Her designer shoes lay discarded beside her, her hair slightly tousled after hours of dancing, and her makeup smudged somewhat. She had never looked more beautiful, honest, alive, his Caldwell. "She said you're keeping the Johnson name at work," a mischievous smile making his heart skip. "But I have to admit, I like the way you call her Mrs. Caldwell. Maya Johnson." "Caldwell sounds pretty good." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies twinkle among the rose bushes. Then Maya spoke unusually seriously. "Your mom doesn't like me." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "She doesn't hate you, Maya. It's just that she needs time." Maya turned to him, her brown eyes serious under the moonlight. "She avoided me the entire wedding unless she had to. During the mother-son dance, she said something that made you look like you had just swallowed glass. When I thanked her for hosting the party, she said, 'I hope you understand the expectations that come with the Caldwell name.' No congratulations, no welcome. Expectations." Ethan clenched his fist, helpless. "Her opinion doesn't matter. This is our life, our marriage." But Maya shook her head. "She's your mother, Ethan. Whether we like it or not, she's part of our lives. She'll have to learn to love me the way you love me." She leaned into his shoulder, and Ethan breathed in the scent of her perfume, mixed with the jasmine of the night. "Promise me one thing," she whispered, her voice intense. "Remember this moment. No matter what happens or who says what or tries to convince you otherwise, remember that we chose each other. We're completely free, and were eyes wide open to every challenge. "All right," Ethan replied, but her voice unsettled him. "Why do you sound like you're preparing for war?" Maya kissed him, a kiss laced with champagne, eternal, and a little prophetic. "We must fight for this love because I love you, Ethan Caldwell." They walked hand in hand toward the house, now their home, their shelter. Ethan felt invincible. Let his mother oppose them. Let society whisper and judge. He had Maya, and Maya had him. Together they could overcome anything. But they didn't know. From the bedroom window upstairs, Eleanor was watching them, her face like chiseled ice, clutching the business card of a private detective. The one she had once deemed unnecessary was now the first weapon in her plan to destroy their happiness. Eleanor Caldwell had begun a game, and Maya, however strong she was, didn't yet know she was the pawn in her hands. 1 year after their wedding, the soft afternoon sunlight poured through the windows of Ethan and Maya's penthouse in Manhattan, casting a warm golden layer over the wooden floor. Maya stood in the bathroom, her hands trembling as she held the pregnancy test, her brown eyes sparkling when 2 pink lines appeared clearly. She pressed her hand to her stomach, her heart racing with an indescribable joy. A child, her and Ethan's child, was growing inside her. She imagined Christmas mornings filled with children's laughter, nights spent storytelling by the fireplace, and Ethan, with his radiant smile, teaching their child to play soccer in the park. "Ethan!" Maya called out, her voice breaking with emotion. His hurried footsteps echoed from the hallway, full of concern. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He appeared at the door, his black hair messy from just waking up, wearing only pajama pants, his handsome white face full of panic. Maya held up the pregnancy test, her smile as bright as the sunlight. "We're having a baby, Ethan." The silence lasted only a few heartbeats, but to Maya, it felt like an eternity. Then Ethan's face lit up, shifting from astonishment to pure joy. He rushed to her, wrapping her in his arms and spinning them around the small bathroom until they were dizzy from laughing and crying. "Really? Are you sure?" he whispered, his voice thick, his face pressed into her neck. "2 tests, both positive," Maya replied, tears rolling down her cheeks. "We're going to be parents, Ethan." They had tried for 3 months, starting from their first wedding anniversary, when they decided to expand their family. 3 months of hope mixed with disappointment, tracking cycles, crossing their fingers, praying, and dreaming of little cribs in the empty room next to their bedroom. That morning, they called in sick, curled up in bed, making a list of potential baby names. Maya said, "If it's a girl, I like Amara," nestled into Ethan's chest as the afternoon sun filtered through the curtains. "Amara Caldwell sounds perfect." Ethan smiled, gently caressing her still flat stomach. "And if it's a boy, it would be James, after your grandfather, right? James Caldwell." They laughed, debating the paint colors for the nursery, from soft blue to warm, sunny yellow. Ethan ran out 3 times that day, first to buy Maya's favorite bagels, second to buy prenatal vitamins, and last to grab a baby name book they read as if it were a Bible. Their joy was like a small flame, brightly burning in their apartment, pushing away the pressures from work at Caldwell Enterprises and the relentless whispers from the upper class about their different marriage. But that joy didn't last. That evening, Ethan called his mother to share the good news, though Maya felt slightly uneasy. She hoped that time and Ethan's love would soften Eleanor's heart, but her mother-in-law only became more sophisticated in her criticisms. Her questions, wrapped in concern, were always as sharp as knives. Is Maya eating enough? Is her job too stressful? Each word was a small cut, insignificant on its own, but painful when accumulated. We should wait for the doctor's confirmation before telling Mom, Ethan suggested. his voice tense after the call. She likes everything to be certain. Maya nodded, but a cold feeling crept into her heart. Eleanor didn't just oppose their marriage because of Maya's background or ethnicity. It seemed like she couldn't accept Ethan choosing a life outside her control. The next 6 weeks passed in a whirlwind of joy and morning sickness. Maya was glowing, so even strangers on the street smiled at her. Ethan became overly protective, insisting she eat breakfast daily and take a cab instead of walking to her marketing office. They found an obstetrician, Dr. Grace Harper, a warm black woman with a reassuring smile. During their first visit, Dr. Harper confirmed the pregnancy. "Everything is perfect," she said, pointing at the ultrasound screen. "Your hormones are great, and all the tests are standard. You're a very healthy pregnant woman." That evening, Ethan called Eleanor again, his voice full of excitement. Maya, preparing dinner, listened to the conversation with an increasing sense of unease. "Yes, Mom, it's confirmed." "No, we haven't told anyone else yet." "Yes, I understand about the family history." When Ethan hung up, his face showed a slight concern. "What did Mom say?" Maya asked, even though she could guess. "She's happy, of course, but a little worried. She wants us to see her doctor, Dr. Richard Langston, instead of Dr. Harper. He's a well-known fertility specialist who's worked with many families in her circle." "I like Dr. Harper," Maya replied, her voice soft but firm. Ethan rubbed his temple. "I know. I've said that. But Mom insists Dr. Langston is the best. She wants to schedule a visit for more testing and genetic counseling." Maya felt the familiar chill whenever Eleanor interfered with their lives, but she pushed it away. This was their joy, their child. Nothing could touch that. 3 days later, Maya woke up with unusual cramps, different from the typical morning sickness. She tried to ignore it, thinking it was just stress from a big project at work. But when she went to the bathroom that afternoon and saw blood, her world seemed to tilt. She whispered, "No, no," seeing the clear evidence that something was wrong. "Please, no." The trip to the emergency room was a nightmare, with its cold fluorescent lights and impersonal atmosphere. Dr. Harper met them there, her face serious, as the ultrasound showed an empty sac where the baby should have been developing. "I'm so sorry," she said gently. "You've had a silent miscarriage. The baby stopped developing about 6 weeks ago, but your body hasn't recognized the loss yet." Maya heard those words through a fog of pain. Ethan's hand gripped hers tightly, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the wound in her chest. "But the test was positive," she whispered. "Everything was fine." Dr. Harper sighed. "Sometimes this happens without explanation. About 15 to 20% of confirmed pregnancies end in miscarriage, often due to random chromosomal abnormalities." They scheduled the D&C procedure for the next day. Maya went through the steps mechanically, signing papers, listening to instructions, and nodding at the explanations. But inside, she felt empty, as if a part of her soul had been taken away. That night, lying in Ethan's arms, she cried, and he whispered comforting words, promising that they would get through this. But neither realized the black sedan parked across from the building, where a shadowy figure carefully recorded their every move. 3 days after the miscarriage, Eleanor appeared at their apartment, bringing with her an extravagant bouquet and a perfectly calculated sympathetic expression. "I've scheduled an appointment for Maya with Dr. Langston," she declared, her voice authoritative. "He specializes in miscarriage and reproductive issues. He can test to ensure this doesn't happen again." Ethan was about to protest, but Eleanor raised her hand to stop him. "Ethan, I've done my research. Langston can run more thorough tests, genetic, hormonal, and any underlying conditions that could have caused this tragedy." The word tragedy was emphasized with just the right amount of concern, but her cold gaze made Maya shiver. "Dr. Harper said miscarriages are common," Maya began, her voice weak from sorrow. "Yes, of course," Eleanor replied, her voice as smooth as velvet. "But Langston can do more in-depth tests. I want what's best for you and the future of the Caldwell family." Maya, exhausted from grief, reluctantly agreed. "It wouldn't hurt to have more tests," she said softly, unaware that she was stepping into Eleanor's first trap, where the truth would be twisted, and Ethan's love would be tested by lies woven by his mother. Once filled with light and laughter, Ethan and Maya's penthouse now carried a quiet atmosphere. 2 weeks after the miscarriage, Maya sat on the sofa, her hands holding a cup of now cold tea, her brown eyes gazing absent-mindedly out at the Manhattan skyline. The pain of losing their child still felt like an unhealed wound, but she tried to return to work, to marketing meetings, so as not to be swallowed by the darkness of her loss. On the other hand, Ethan had become quieter, his deep blue eyes often stopping on Maya with an unnamed concern. Like an elegant shadow, Eleanor Caldwell had used this vulnerable time to tighten the noose. The appointment with Dr. Richard Langston, arranged by her to secure the Caldwell family's future, took place at a luxurious clinic on the Upper East Side. The clinic's space, with white leather chairs and abstract paintings on the walls, exuded more opulence than the warmth of a medical facility. Langston, a white man in his 60s with smooth gray hair, carried an air of sophistication, but his gaze was as sharp as a surgical knife was. "Caldwell," he greeted Maya, deliberately using Ethan's surname despite her correction to Johnson at work. "I'm sorry for your loss. We'll investigate the cause to ensure this doesn't happen again." The appointment lasted longer than expected, with a series of blood tests, ultrasounds, and detailed questions about Maya's medical history. Langston asked about her mother, her cousins, and even health issues from her teenage years. His voice was calm but calculating. "Did your mother ever have a miscarriage?" he asked, quickly jotting notes on his clipboard. "No, as far as I know," Maya replied, feeling more interrogated than examined. "What about genetic diseases? Diabetes? Autoimmune disorders?" Maya shook her head, her patience beginning to thin. "My family doesn't have any significant health issues." But Langston's questions made her feel like she was failing some invisible test. Langston concluded, "I wanted to run in-depth tests," pushing his glasses up. "Genetic tests, hormone levels, and a few less common diagnostics. It will take a few weeks to get the results, but I want to be thorough." Maya nodded, though unease settled in her chest. She didn't want to see Langston again, but the pain of her miscarriage made her susceptible to any promise of answers or prevention. Langston called Ethan directly 2 weeks later, requesting he come to the clinic alone. At Caldwell Enterprises, Ethan felt his heart tighten when he heard Langston's low voice over the phone. "We need to talk about your wife's condition," he said. "It's best to meet in person." Ethan left an important meeting that afternoon, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. In Langston's opulent office, with the afternoon sunlight streaming through large glass windows, Ethan sat opposite the doctor, gripping the armrests of his chair. Langston opened a thick file, his voice serious, calculated. "Ethan, I've reviewed Maya's results carefully. There are more serious issues than we initially thought." He slid a stack of documents across the desk, with a letterhead from a clinic in Chicago, where Maya had lived during graduate school. The documents listed that Maya, at age 23, had undergone infertility treatment, had 2 previous miscarriages, and was diagnosed with recurrent miscarriage syndrome with a potential genetic factor. Ethan shook his head, his voice trembling. "This can't be. Maya never mentioned this. She told me everything about her health." Langston leaned forward, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. Sometimes, such trauma is too painful to share. Some women, especially those with a history of multiple miscarriages, hide it for fear of judgment or rejection. I've seen many similar cases. He opened a medical journal, pointing to an article on pseudosciasis. Women who experience reproductive trauma sometimes develop a psychological mechanism, causing them to believe they're pregnant even when they're not. The mind is a powerful thing, Ethan. The floor seemed to tilt beneath Ethan. You're saying Maya was imagining the pregnancy before? Langston nodded slowly, not consciously. That's what makes this condition tragic. Her body can manifest symptoms, missed periods, nausea, even weight gain. But there's no fetus. Her recent miscarriage may have triggered a new psychological cycle. Ethan shook his head harder, clinging to the image of Maya's bright smile when she held up the pregnancy test. But Dr. Harper confirmed the pregnancy. The ultrasound showed the sac. Yes, but there was no fetal heartbeat. Langston countered smoothly. Maya's body was attempting to create a pregnancy that wasn't viable. Combined with a strong psychological desire for a child, she interpreted early signs as confirmation. He pulled out another document, a study on pseudosciasis, with cases of intelligent, successful women who were obsessed with the illusion of pregnancy. Every story seemed to describe Maya eerily. Ethan left the clinic with the stack of documents in hand, his mind a whirlpool. He drove home, Langston's words echoing. She needs help, Ethan. If left untreated, this condition could get worse. When he walked into the apartment, he found Maya in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, humming an old Aretha Franklin song. She looked normal and beautiful, which only made Ethan feel more uneasy. "How was the appointment?" Maya asked, not looking up, her voice gentle. "Good," Ethan lied, hiding the documents under a pile of mail on the table. "He said we should wait a bit before trying again. Let your body recover." Maya nodded, but a flicker of doubt crossed her face. "What did he say about me?" Ethan hesitated, feeling like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. He's concerned about your mental state after the miscarriage." A heavy silence stretched between them. Maya stopped chopping the vegetables and turned to look at him. "My mental state? What do you mean?" Ethan swallowed, trying to keep his voice calm. "He thinks you might be affected by the loss. Maybe I am not thinking clearly." Maya looked at him, her gaze penetrating. "Ethan, you trust me, right? That I know my body, know what happened?" Ethan replied, "Of course I trust you," but his voice lacked conviction. Maya set the knife down and walked toward him. "Then why are you looking at me like I'm a stranger?" Before Ethan could respond, she turned away, her voice small but sharp. "I'm going to take a shower. Dinner will be ready in 30 minutes. As the bathroom door closed behind her, Ethan looked at the stack of documents on the table, his heart heavy. The numbers, reports, and signatures all seemed too real. But he couldn't believe that Maya, the woman he loved more than anything, had hidden such a painful secret, or maybe she didn't even know. That night, as Maya slept beside him, her breathing steady, Ethan lay awake, reading the pseudosciasis research Langston had given him. Each line felt like a stab, planting doubt in his heart. Little did he know, miles away in her penthouse, Ethan Caldwell was sipping champagne, reviewing copies of forged documents worth $50,000. Every detail was perfect, from the Chicago clinic's letterhead to the genetic test results. Langston had done his part well, sowing doubt in Ethan's mind with the skill of a master manipulator. Phase 1 was complete. Eleanor only needed to be patient, watering those seeds and waiting for her son's marriage to crumble from within. 3 months after the unsettling meeting with Dr. Richard Langston, Ethan and Maya's penthouse had become filled with suffocating silences. Maya tried to regain her rhythm, diving into work at the marketing company, to forget the pain of the miscarriage and the vague doubts in Ethan's eyes. But one morning, when she woke up to severe nausea, a spark of hope flickered inside her. She secretly bought 3 pregnancy tests, and her heart raced with excitement when all 3 showed 2 pink lines. She stood before the bathroom mirror, her hand pressed to her stomach, her radiant smile returning to her dark face. "We have another chance," she whispered, imagining happy days with Ethan and their child. Maya wanted to share the news with Ethan immediately, but the memory of her last conversation with Langston made her hesitate. She first decided to see Dr. Grace Harper, her former obstetrician, to confirm. But when she called the clinic, she was stunned to hear that her medical records had been transferred to Langston at the family's request. "Which family?" Maya asked, her voice shaking. The receptionist hesitated. "Your husband, Mrs. Caldwell." Maya hung up, feeling betrayed. Ethan had never mentioned agreeing to transfer her records. She called him, but he was in a meeting at Caldwell Enterprises, and his rushed voice only made her feel more uneasy. "Let's talk tonight, Maya, okay?" That evening, Maya waited for Ethan in the living room, where the pregnancy tests were on the coffee table. When he entered, his suit rumpled from a long day. She held up the tests, her voice filled with hope. "Ethan, I'm pregnant. 3 tests, all positive." She expected to see joy on his face, like the last time, but instead, his deep blue eyes flashed with confusion. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice low, almost doubtful. Maya felt her heart tighten. "Of course. I'm sure. I know my body." Ethan sat down on the sofa, rubbing his temple. "We should see Langston right away. He specializes in cases like yours." "Cases like mine?" Maya repeated, her voice sharper than intended. "What do you mean, Ethan?" He hesitated, avoiding her gaze. "After the miscarriage, Langston said you might be affected psychologically. He's worried that—" Maya interrupted, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Afraid that I'm imagining the pregnancy." "Ethan, do you believe that?" Ethan stood up and walked toward her, but their distance felt like an ocean. "I want to be sure, Maya. I like what's best for you. For us." Maya turned away, tears welling up. "What's best for me is for my husband to trust me." She left the room, the bedroom door closing with a sense of finality. That night, she lay awake, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the fragile life growing inside her. She knew she was pregnant, but Ethan's doubts felt like a knife to her heart. The next day, Maya scheduled an appointment with a different obstetrician, Dr. Linda Carter, at a public clinic unrelated to Langston. The ultrasound revealed not just 1, but 3 sacs, each with a tiny heartbeat. "Congratulations," Dr. Carter smiled. "You're having triplets. It's a rare pregnancy, but everything looks fine." Maya burst into tears, both happy and fearful. 3 children. A miracle after the pain of loss. But that joy was overshadowed by thoughts of Ethan, who might not believe her. She decided to keep the triplets a secret until she had more concrete proof. But when she returned home, she found that Ethan had already scheduled another appointment with Langston without consulting her. He said, "We need to check more thoroughly." His voice filled with concern but lacking trust. Maya reluctantly agreed, hoping that Langston would confirm the pregnancy and restate Ethan's doubts. But at the clinic, Langston conducted a series of tests with a cold demeanor. He performed an ultrasound, but deliberately placed the screen out of Maya and Ethan's view. "Is there any unusual stress lately?" he asked, taking notes on the thick file. My husband thinks I'm suffering from psychological issues, so I'm a little stressed, Maya replied, her voice sharp. Langston gave a thin smile, showing no reaction. After the examination, he asked to speak privately with Ethan. Maya sat in the waiting room, watching other couples holding hands, their eyes filled with shared joy. She felt lonelier than ever, like an outsider in her marriage. In the office, Langston showed Ethan the ultrasound, which was an empty screen. "I'm afraid there's no pregnancy here," he said, his voice serious. "Maya is displaying symptoms of pseudocyesis, possibly due to stress after the miscarriage." Ethan shook his head, clinging to the image of the pregnancy tests. "But she has symptoms. Nausea, fatigue. All of that can be explained psychologically," Langston interrupted, presenting a fake blood test result showing unusually high HCG levels that didn't match a pregnancy. She may have been self-administering hormone boosters, either intentionally or unintentionally. I've seen cases like this. Maya needs psychological help. Ethan left the clinic, clutching the documents, his mind spinning. He wanted to trust Maya, but the scientific evidence before him was too convincing. When he got home, Ethan found Maya reading a book about pregnancy in the bedroom. "What did Langston say?" she asked, her voice soft but cautious. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, his voice low. "Maya, the ultrasound didn't show anything. Langston thinks you might have a psychological disorder." Maya closed the book, her brown eyes flashing with anger and pain. "A psychological disorder? Ethan, I'm having triplets. I saw another doctor, Dr. Carter, and she confirmed it. Do you want to see the ultrasound?" Ethan shook his head, his voice filled with conflict. "Maya Langston is the expert. He says these symptoms could be from fabricated hormones. Are you taking any medication?" Maya jumped up, tears streaming down her face. "Medication? Do you think I'm lying to you?" "Ethan, I'm your wife. How can you trust a stranger more than me?" She stormed out of the room, the sound of the door slamming in his ears. Ethan sat there, his hands clutching his head, torn between his love for Maya and the seemingly irrefutable evidence. Meanwhile, in her penthouse, Eleanor Caldwell reviewed the latest report from Langston, her lips curling into a cold smile. She knew Maya was pregnant with triplets from the secret ultrasound her detective had obtained, but she also knew Ethan would never believe his wife again. The forged documents, the lies carefully woven, had planted deep seeds of doubt. Eleanor took a sip of champagne, satisfied with the progress. Maya, however strong she was being isolated, and Ethan, who had promised to protect her, had now become a tool in his mother's hands, pushing Maya into a battle she would have to fight alone. 3 months after the unsettling encounter with Dr. Richard Langston, Ethan and Maya's penthouse, once a sanctuary of love, now felt like a silent battlefield. Maya, pregnant with triplets in her 4th month, could feel the first movements of their children inside her, a minor miracle amid the growing storm of doubt. But Ethan, caught in the web of lies spun by Dr. Langston and his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, had grown increasingly distant. He moved to sleep on the sofa, citing the need for space to think. But how he looked at Maya no longer held the pure love it once did. Now, it was filled with wariness, as though she were a medical puzzle to be solved. Eleanor, with the patience of a predator, had waited for this moment. She arranged an intervention disguised as an effort to help Maya with her dangerous psychological state. On Tuesday morning, when Maya returned from a marketing meeting, she found Ethan, Langston, and a strange woman sitting in the living room. The woman, introducing herself as Dr. Evelyn Carter, a white psychiatrist with stern gray hair, looked at Maya like a specimen under a microscope. "Maya," Ethan began, his voice trembling, but trying to sound resolute. We're here because we care about you. We want to help you. Maya stood frozen, instinctively clutching her stomach, where her 3 children were growing. She looked around the room, from Ethan's anguished face to Langston's cold professionalism and Carter's sharp, calculating observation. "Help me with what?" she asked, her voice low but full of caution. Carter opened a thick file, her tone gentle but calculating. "Maya, we believe you are suffering from pseudopsoriasis, complicated by hormone imbalance from self-administered drugs. We are concerned that you may become paranoid, doubting those who wish to help you." Maya felt blood rush to her head, a mixture of anger and fear. "Paranoid? I'm pregnant with triplets. I can feel my children moving. I've had an ultrasound with Dr. Linda Carter, not with Langston, whom I don't trust." She turned to Ethan, her brown eyes pleading. "Ethan, you know me. Have you ever seen me take anything other than prenatal vitamins?" Ethan lowered his head, remaining silent, and that silence felt like a dagger to Maya's heart. Finally, he whispered, "Langston says women like you, they can be very good at hiding things." "Women like me?" Maya repeated, her voice breaking. "You mean a black woman? Not good enough for the Caldwell family, right?" Ethan flinched, shaking his head. "No, Maya, I didn't mean that. I think you're suffering, and you need help." Langston interjected, his voice smooth. "Maya, your blood tests show abnormally high HCG levels, but the ultrasound shows no fetus. You've been using clomiphene and HCG injections, powerful hormone stimulants that can cause symptoms similar to pregnancy." "I'm not using any drugs!" Maya shouted, tears streaming down her face. "You're lying! I'm pregnant, and you all know it!" Carter leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Your reaction is a typical symptom of this disorder, Maya. Denial is part of the illness. We recommend you voluntarily admit yourself to a specialist facility where we can monitor and treat you." Maya stepped back, still clutching her stomach, as though trying to protect her children from the lies surrounding her. "Do you want to lock me up? Ethan, do you agree with this?" Ethan stood up and walked toward her, but his eyes were filled with pain and doubt. "Maya, I love you, but you're not thinking clearly. We can get through this if you accept treatment." Maya looked into his eyes, searching for the man who once promised to love and protect her, but all she saw was a stranger manipulated by others. "And if I refuse?" she asked, her voice trembling. Carter replied coldly, "Then we'll ask the court for an involuntary commitment order. Based on the psychiatric assessment and medical evidence, any judge would see you as a danger to yourself." Maya felt the world collapse. She realized this wasn't a misunderstanding but a trap carefully laid. Eleanor, who had always looked down on her for her race and background, had turned her husband into a weapon to destroy her. "I need time to think," Maya said, her voice choking. Carter nodded, but her eyes were sharp. "All right. But every day you delay, the treatment becomes more difficult." After Langston and Carter left, Maya and Ethan sat in heavy silence. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the garden below in pure white. "Do you remember Maya speaking softly, her eyes distant, when discussing having children? You said you wanted a little girl with my eyes, my stubbornness." Ethan blinked, tears threatening to fall. "Maya," she continued, her voice soft but firm. "Our children are here, Ethan. 3 of them, alive and growing inside me. But you think I'm crazy?" Ethan stood up, his voice rough. "I don't think you're crazy. I think you need help. From people who know you're faking a pregnancy. From the doctor working for my mother." Maya looked at him, her eyes full of pain. "My mother? Isn't it convenient that I developed this disorder right after our wedding?" Isn't it strange that only your mother's doctor can diagnose it? Ethan shook his head, his voice firm. Don't drag my mother into this, Maya. She wants a grandchild. This is about you, about your health. Maya stood up, her belly now visible under her tight sweater. I'm 4 months pregnant, Ethan. I've gained 10 kilos. I haven't had my period in 4 months. Are you still saying this is all in my head? Ethan looked at her belly for a moment, doubt flickering in his eyes. But Langston's words echoed in his mind. Fat belly, weight gain, all from artificial hormones. He turned away, his voice small. I want to help you. Get out, Maya whispered. Ethan didn't move, so she yelled, Get out of this house, Ethan. Don't return until you remember I'm your wife, not your patient. Ethan silently gathered his things and left the apartment into the falling snow. He returned to the Caldwell estate, where Eleanor greeted him with open arms and fake sympathy. You did the right thing, my dear, she said, her voice gentle. Maya needs treatment, and sometimes the kindest thing is to force her to accept it. 3 days later, as Maya was preparing to leave the city to find a safe place for herself and her children, Dr. Carter appeared at her door, accompanied by 2 police officers and a court order for involuntary psychiatric confinement. I'm so sorry, Maya, Carter said, her voice filled with false sincerity. But your condition has worsened to the point where we cannot let you remain free. As the officers gently but firmly led her to the ambulance, Maya saw Ethan standing in the black sedan across the street. Their eyes met through the car window, and what she saw shattered her heart. Relief. Ethan, the man who had promised to protect her, now believed that locking her up was the way to save her. Maya held her stomach in the ambulance, whispering to her children, Don't be afraid, my loves. I'll find a way out. I will protect you. But as the door to the ambulance closed, she knew she was trapped in a web of lies woven by Eleanor, and the man she loved had become her unwitting enemy. On a cold February night, in the psychiatric ward of Hillcrest Hospital, Maya Johnson woke at 3:17 a.m. to intense contractions. She clutched her stomach, sweat beading on her forehead, her breath coming in short bursts as the pain tore through her body. It had been 7 weeks since she signed the divorce papers in this cold room, and 9 months since Dr. Richard Langston convinced Ethan that her pregnancy was nothing more than an illusion. But now, the labor pains were as real as a knife's edge, confirming what she had always known. She was carrying their 3 children. Help! Maya cried out, her trembling hand pressing the nurse call button. Nurse Lena, a middle-aged black woman with a compassionate gaze, rushed into the room and found Maya curled on the bed, her hand clutching her hard belly. How far apart are the pains? Lena asked, quickly calling Dr. Morris, the head doctor of the hospital. I don't know. It just started, Maya groaned, another contraction causing her to bite her lip until it bled. Lena, my babies. They're coming. Lena, who had always doubted the pseudocyesis diagnosis, acted quickly. She had cared for many pregnant women, and Maya's stomach, tight with precise movements, couldn't be the symptom of a psychological disorder. Dr. Morris, an elderly white doctor with a stern face, arrived within minutes. He examined Maya, and his face changed from doubt to shock. Call the obstetrics team immediately, he ordered into the phone. We have a patient in labor with multiple. Right away. Multiples? Maya gasped through the pain. I told you, I'm having triplets. Morris looked at her file, filled with notes about pseudocyesis, then back at the woman before him, clearly in real labor. Mrs. Johnson Caldwell, I need you to confirm. Have you been pregnant this entire time? Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face as another contraction hit. Yes, I've been telling the truth for 9 months. Please, help my babies be born safely. Within the hour, Maya was rushed to the delivery room, but it was not the warm, welcoming environment of a typical maternity ward. The cold fluorescent lights, the harsh sound of machines, and the bewildered medical team trying to process that a woman they had deemed mentally ill was about to give birth made the atmosphere surreal. The emergency ultrasound machine was brought in, and the images that appeared left the room speechless. 3 distinct heartbeats, 3 fully formed babies ready to be born. How is this possible? Dr. Nguyen, the obstetrician, asked. Her records say she has pseudocyesis. Morris shook his head, his voice grave. Someone made a serious mistake. She's giving birth to triplets. Maya, amidst the intense labor pains, could barely hear their confusion. She focused on her breathing, her children, and the promise to protect them no matter the cost. She faced this miracle alone, with no Ethan holding her hand and no family by her side. But when the first cry echoed at 11:42 a.m., all the pain faded away. Malik, weighing 2.8 kilos, was placed on her chest, his tiny eyes wide open. 6 minutes later, weighing 2.5 kilos, Jaden was followed by Ethan's sleek black hair. At 11:53, Isaiah, weighing 2.7 kilos, completed their family, bearing Maya's resolute features on his tiny face. 3 healthy boys, Dr. Nguyen declared, placing all 3 on Maya's chest. She hugged her children, sobbing with a mixture of joy and pain. Here you are, she whispered. Mom promised to protect you. But the joy was overshadowed by the reality. She had given birth in a psychiatric hospital, abandoned by her husband, and deemed insane by the world. Lena, wiping her tears, held Maya's hand. You're the strongest mother I've ever seen. Maya asked Lena to call Ethan. She said he needs to know about our children, though her heart ached when thinking of him. Lena called from the nurse's station and reached Ethan at Caldwell Enterprises, where he tried to bury his pain at work. Mr. Caldwell, this is Lena Martinez from Hillcrest. About your wife. Ethan's blood froze. Is she okay? What's going on? Lena smiled softly through the phone. She just delivered 3 healthy baby boys. The silence stretched so long that Lena wondered if the line had been cut. No way, Ethan finally said, his voice shattered. Maya wasn't pregnant. She has pseudocyesis. Lena gently replied, I'm holding one of your sons, Malik, weighing 2.8 kilos. Would you like to know more? Ethan slumped into his chair, the room spinning. You're telling me she's pregnant? For 9 months? Lena confirmed, and Ethan hung up, his mind empty. For the past 9 months, he had trusted Langston, trusted his mother, and trusted that Maya was insane. He had locked her in a psychiatric hospital, divorced her, and abandoned her while she carried their 3 children. Now, the truth hit him like a blade through his heart. He drove to Hillcrest in a daze, his heart racing with fear and hope. At the hospital, he was led to the maternity ward, not the psychiatric ward where he had last seen Maya. Dr. Morris stopped him in the hallway, his face grim. Mr. Caldwell, Morris said, we need to talk before you see your wife and children. Children, Ethan repeated, his voice trembling. Morris nodded. 3 boys were born a few hours ago. Mr. Caldwell, I need to understand why a pregnant woman was confined to the psychiatric ward with a diagnosis of pseudocyesis. Ethan felt his legs go weak. Langston said she wasn't pregnant. He gave me ultrasounds, blood tests, and psychological evaluations, and said she was self-administering drugs to fake the symptoms. Morris frowned. Langston? Who is he? Her doctor, referred by my mother, Ethan, replied, his voice cracking. Morris sighed. Mr. Caldwell, your wife didn't receive proper prenatal care. She was given psychiatric medication that could have harmed the babies. She gave birth alone because everyone believed her pregnancy was a delusion. This is a major medical malpractice case. Ethan shook his head, his voice trembling. I didn't intend to harm her. I thought I was helping her with her mental illness. Morris looked at him, his gaze sharp. Someone lied to you and lied to us. Maya had been telling the truth for 9 months, and no one believed her. When Ethan entered Maya's room, he saw her breastfeeding one of the babies, the other 2 sleeping in cribs beside the bed. She looked up, and her eyes froze him in place, not with anger or pain, but with total indifference. Maya, he whispered, stepping closer. I don't know what to say. She looked at him, her voice flat. Then say, I'm sorry for locking you up for carrying our children. Or, I'm sorry for divorcing you when you told the truth. Ethan looked at the babies. Malik, Jaden, Isaiah. The children who carried his and Maya's features, living proof that she had been right. He knelt beside the bed, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know, Maya. They gave me fake evidence. I thought I was protecting you. Maya shifted the baby to the other breast, and her movements were practiced but cold. But you chose to trust them instead of trusting me, the mother of your children. Ethan reached out to the babies, but Maya leaned forward, blocking him. Don't. You lost the right to touch them when you signed the divorce papers. Maya, I was wrong, Ethan pleaded. Let me make it right. Maya gave a bitter laugh, not one of joy. Make it right? How do you make right 9 months of thinking your wife is crazy? How do you make it right, locking me in a psychiatric hospital while I was pregnant? How do you apologize for abandoning our children because you thought I was too sick to know my own body? Ethan lowered his head, speechless. Maya looked at him, her voice quiet but firm. Leave, Ethan. Let me and my children have peace. As Ethan left the room, he carried with him an unbearable pain. The truth was exposed, but the price was too high. Maya, the woman he loved, had given birth alone because of his weakness. Eleanor sipped her champagne back at her penthouse, satisfied with the nearly perfect plan. But she didn't know that an internal investigation at Hillcrest had already begun, and Langston's forged documents would soon be exposed, dragging her into a legal storm. 8 years after Maya gave birth to triplets in the psychiatric ward of Hillcrest Hospital, the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of her corner office on the 32nd floor of the Morrison Building in New York, lighting up Maya Johnson's face. She stood there, a 36-year-old black woman in a dark blue suit, looking down at the bustling city below. From a marketing employee, Maya built Johnson Strategies, a consulting firm that started from scratch and became a destination for Fortune 500 companies. Her success was proof of her willpower, but her brown eyes still carried the scars of 8 years of painful betrayal when her husband abandoned her, and the world called her insane. Mom, will you watch me play soccer tonight? Malik's voice, her 8-year-old son, echoed from the office door. He was tall, with Ethan's dark hair and Maya's sharp brown eyes, standing in his school uniform, with his backpack slung over one shoulder. Maya turned around, smiling, and knelt to adjust his tie. I won't miss it, but be careful. I might cheer so loudly that it'll embarrass you. Malik beamed, his serious face lighting up. Jaden says you must cheer 3 times louder because you've got 3 kids. Maya laughed, hugging Malik tightly. Her 3 sons, Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah, were the center of her world. Malik was the protector, always looking out for his brothers. With his boundless curiosity, Jaden was fascinated by science and messy experiments. A wise old soul, Isaiah loved reading and pondered like a philosopher. They were living proof of Maya's love and resilience, and a reminder of the absent father in their lives. Meanwhile, Ethan Caldwell lived in a different world, a cold penthouse in Manhattan, where he faced daily regret. Over the past 8 years, he had resigned from his position as vice president of Caldwell Enterprises, unable to bear his mother Eleanor's gaze. This woman had spun a web of lies that destroyed his family. He had started therapy with Dr. Sarah Nguyen, an Asian-American therapist, to understand why he had so easily trusted his mother and Dr. Langston over his wife. The painful therapy sessions forced him to confront his weakness, his dependence on his mother, his fear of losing control, and his failure to protect Maya. Ethan sent letters and gifts to the children through his lawyer. Birthday cards, Christmas presents, science books for Jaden, soccer balls for Malik, and historical novels for Isaiah. But Maya kept her distance, returning every gift and only keeping them in a box for when the children were old enough to decide for themselves. She didn't want Ethan to be a part of their lives until he proved his change, not through words, but through actions. In one therapy session, Dr. Nguyen asked Ethan, "If Maya never forgives you, if the children don't want to meet you, how will you live?" The question left Ethan speechless. Over the past 8 years, he had lived to atone for his mistakes. But for the first time, he realized that atoning wasn't about winning Maya back, but about becoming someone worthy of her, even if she never looked back. He began to change, engaging in community projects, funding scholarships for underprivileged children, and learning to listen rather than control. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn Heights, Maya and the children lived in a renovated brownstone, where she turned her pain into strength. In the evenings, she sat with her children around the kitchen table, helping Malik with math homework, listening to Jaden talk about his latest experiment, and reading with Isaiah about Roman dynasties. But their questions were becoming sharper. "Mom, why don't I have Dad's last name?" Isaiah asked one evening, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Maya took a deep breath, choosing the truth appropriate for their age. "I kept the Johnson name when I married your dad. Your father made a big mistake when you were born, so he doesn't live with us." Malik, with his protective instinct, chimed in. "What mistake? Does Dad want to meet us?" Maya smiled sadly. "Your dad loves you, but he listened to the wrong people and hurt our family. One day, if you want, you can meet him and find out for yourselves." Jaden, always practical, asked, "But if Dad made Mom sad, why should we meet him?" Maya stroked his hair, her voice gentle. "Because you deserve to know your dad, even though he made mistakes. I will always be here to protect you." Their questions made Maya think about Ethan. She received letters from him, no longer full of pleading for forgiveness, but simple updates about his life, quiet expressions of regret. One recent letter made her pause. "Maya, I know you might not read these letters, but I must write. I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I failed you. I know my mom paid Langston to falsify the records, and I was the victim, but that doesn't erase my mistake. Our children are proof of your strength. If one day they want to meet me, I'll be ready." Maya read the letter several times, her heart torn between anger and a little sorrow. She had investigated and knew that Langston had been prosecuted for medical fraud, but Eleanor had escaped legal consequences due to her connections. She wasn't ready to forgive, but her children were increasingly curious about their father. One evening, when Malik asked if Dad knew I played soccer, Maya felt her heart soften. Perhaps, for the sake of her children, she would consider giving Ethan a chance, not to forgive, but to let them choose for themselves. Meanwhile, at the hospital, an internal investigation into Hillcrest's malpractice was progressing, with Langston's forged documents being exposed. In her penthouse, Eleanor sensed the tightening of the legal noose, but she still believed her plan was nearly perfect. She didn't know that Maya, with the strength of a mother, was preparing for a new battle, not just to protect her children, but to reclaim the truth that had been stolen from her. 8 years after Maya gave birth to triplets in the psychiatric ward of Hillcrest Hospital, a call at 2:47 a.m. jolted Ethan Caldwell's phone from the bedside table. He sat up, his heart pounding as he saw Mercy General Hospital on the screen. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Dr. Patricia Moore." The female voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "Your mother, Mrs. Eleanor Caldwell, has been admitted after a fall at a charity gala. She has requested to see you immediately, saying there's something important she cannot wait to share." Ethan arrived at the hospital within 20 minutes, his mind in turmoil. He and Eleanor hadn't spoken in 3 years after he severed all contact upon discovering her role in destroying his marriage to Maya. But when he entered the hospital room, he was stunned by the sight of his mother. Eleanor, once the symbol of New York's high society, now lay in a hospital bed, her silver hair disheveled, her pale, makeup-free face looking small and fragile. As she saw him, tears immediately welled up. "Ethan," she whispered weakly, "you're here." Ethan replied that the hospital says you need to talk, his voice cold as he sat down in a chair by the bed. Eleanor took a deep breath, her trembling hands moving slowly. "I have pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I may have only a few months left, but that's not why I called you. I can't live with these secrets anymore. You need to know the truth about what I did to Maya. All of it." Ethan clenched his hand on the armrest, anger flaring up. "I already know. You paid Langston to falsify the records to make me think Maya was crazy." Eleanor shook her head, tears rolling down her face. "It wasn't just that, Ethan. It was much more." She reached into the drawer beside the bed, pulling out a thick envelope, her hands shaking so much she almost dropped it. "I've kept these for 8 years, waiting for the courage to show you." Ethan opened the envelope, his heart heavy. Inside were dozens of documents, receipts for over $300,000 paid to Langston, contracts with private investigators who followed Maya, and photos that nearly took his breath away. Pictures of Maya during her pregnancy were taken from street corners through a telephoto lens, showing her at doctor's appointments, buying maternity clothes, and her hands cradling her belly with a radiant smile. There were dozens of them, documenting every moment of the 9 months when everyone thought she had a psychological disorder. "You had her followed?" Ethan asked, his voice hollow. Eleanor nodded, her eyes shut tightly. "I documented everything. Every doctor's appointment I blocked. Every pregnancy symptom I explained away as a delusion." She opened another file. "Here are Maya's real ultrasounds. Langston took these during her exams, but gave you fake images." Ethan looked at the ultrasound images. So clear, it was heartbreaking. 3 tiny babies with limbs, 3 distinct heartbeats, and dates matching Maya's pregnancy. "You knew she was having triplets from the 12th week," Eleanor confessed, her voice breaking. "You knew they were healthy. So let me make you believe she was crazy." "Why?" Ethan shouted, standing up, tears streaming down his face. "Why did you destroy her?" "Destroy us?" Eleanor opened her eyes, her face full of pain. "Because I was afraid of losing you. Maya is strong and independent and made you happy in ways I couldn't control. She's everything I'm not. Truthful, loving, forgiving. I was jealous, Ethan. I'm a bitter woman, and I couldn't bear you loving anyone more than me." Ethan stepped back, looking at her as though she were a stranger. "You locked her in a psychiatric hospital when she was carrying your grandchild." Eleanor nodded, her voice choked with emotion. "I convinced myself I was protecting you from a mistake. But the truth is, I was jealous of your love for her." She pulled out one last file, letters between her and Langston, revealing a plan more ruthless than he had imagined. "I intended to take the children," she admitted. After Maya gave birth in the psychiatric hospital, Langston declared her permanently mentally incompetent. As the only stable relative, I would be awarded custody of the children. I intended to raise them while Maya stayed locked away forever. Ethan felt the world collapse around him. He turned to the window, staring at the city lights, fighting the urge to scream angrily. "You knew what you did? Maya gave birth alone because of you. Our children don't even know their father because of you." Eleanor cried uncontrollably. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but you need to use this truth to win back your family." Ethan left the hospital with the envelope of documents, his mind in a daze. The next afternoon, he drove to Maya's office, his heart heavy. Through the glass door, he saw her meeting with a client, confident and strong, a black woman who had built her empire from the ashes of pain. When she stepped out at 6:30 p.m., Ethan blocked her way on the sidewalk. "Maya, we need to talk. I have proof of what my mother did." Maya stopped, her brown eyes cold. "Proof of what? That I was pregnant with your children when you locked me up? That I was telling the truth when you called me crazy?" Ethan nodded, his voice shaking. "Yes. My mother confessed everything. She had you followed, faked the ultrasound, and paid Langston $300,000 to deceive me." He handed her the envelope, but Maya didn't take it. "I don't need proof, Ethan. I lived through it. I know what happened." "But you don't know how carefully it was orchestrated," Ethan emphasized. "My mother knew you were having triplets, and still let me believe you were sick." Pain flickered in Maya's eyes, but she quickly hid it. "Of course she knew. I figured that out a long time ago. Your mother hated me from the start for who I am, for my family, for my race. You don't understand why she made you choose her over me." Ethan lowered his head. His voice choked. "I was weak, Maya. I was deceived. But our children, they deserve to know their father." Maya looked at him, her voice firm. "Our children deserve more than what you've given them. Maybe they'll want to meet you one day, but not because you have proof or because you're sorry. If you want to be their father, prove you've changed, not with words, but with actions." She got into the car, leaving Ethan on the sidewalk with the envelope of documents, now feeling meaningless. Meanwhile, the investigation into Hillcrest expanded, with Langston's forged documents being exposed. Langston had fled to Brazil, but lawyers were beginning to focus on Eleanor, who still believed herself to be untouchable. However, in the hospital, as she began chemotherapy, Eleanor knew her time was running out. She looked at photos of her 3 grandsons, Malik, Jaden, Isaiah, whom she had never met, and for the first time, she felt the actual cost of her manipulation. One Saturday afternoon in October, Prospect Park in Brooklyn Heights was bathed in gentle golden sunlight, the leaves beginning to change to autumn colors. Ethan Caldwell sat on a wooden bench, tightly gripping a soccer ball, a science magazine, and a book on Roman history, small gifts he had chosen based on Maya's suggestions about his children's interests. It had been 8 years since he had last seen Malik, Jaden, or Isaiah, but today, with Maya's reluctant consent, he would meet his 3 sons for the first time. His heart raced with hope and fear as he thought about the chance to become a part of their lives, and maybe, one day, a part of Maya's life again. Maya had called him 3 weeks earlier, after much consideration during her therapy sessions. "The kids want to meet you," she said over the phone, her voice calm but firm. "Saturday, 2 p.m., at the park near our house. I'll be there the whole time, and if any of them feel uncomfortable, we'll leave immediately." Ethan agreed right away, his voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you, Maya. I won't let you down." But deep down, He knew this wasn't an opportunity to win her back, but a challenge to prove he was worthy of his children. He arrived early at the park, choosing a bench near the soccer field to be able to watch. When Maya appeared, leading the three boys, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah looked like the dreams he had once had about his family. The tallest Malik walked ahead with a protective air, his curly black hair and sharp eyes like Maya's. Jaden, energetic, hopped around with bright, curious eyes. Isaiah, calm, carried a book, his face bearing the profound wisdom of a child wise beyond his years. In a dark green sweater, Maya looked intense but cautious, her brown eyes watching Ethan as though assessing every movement. She led the boys closer, her voice gentle. "Kids, this is your dad, Ethan." No one moved for a few seconds, the air heavy with curiosity and doubt. Then Jaden, with his usual straightforwardness, stepped forward and asked, "Is he our dad?" Ethan kneeled to be at eye level with the boy, his voice choked. "Yes, son. I'm your dad." Malik, standing behind, crossed his arms and asked with caution, "Why didn't you want to meet us before?" The question cut like a knife, but Ethan didn't shy away. "Because I made a big mistake when you were born. I didn't trust your mom, and it took me years to learn how to be the dad you deserve." Isaiah, quietly observing, added, "Have you learned yet?" Ethan smiled sadly, his deep blue eyes sincere. "I don't know, Isaiah. That's up to you. I'm here for you to decide if I'm worthy." Maya stood behind, her hands tightly clasped, surprised by Ethan's sincerity. He wasn't trying to be the perfect father, but simply trying to be himself, a man trying to atone for his wrongs. Over the next 2 hours, Ethan let the children lead. Malik, though reserved, agreed to play soccer with him. The boy challenged Ethan with strong shots, but when Ethan blocked one, Malik reluctantly nodded. "You're not bad," he said, a slight grin tugging at his lips. Jaden pulled Ethan aside to show off his science project about photosynthesis, asking tricky questions to test him. Ethan answered carefully, and when Jaden beamed, saying, "You're smart enough to get it," Ethan felt his heart warm. Isaiah, initially quiet, finally shared about the book he was reading, a story about Julius Caesar. Ethan told him about a time he visited Rome, and Isaiah, with a rare smile, said, "You're good at telling stories." Maya watched from a distance, her heart torn. Ethan was not the man who had abandoned her 8 years ago. He listened to the children, not pushing or controlling, and his patience unsettled her. She wanted to keep her distance and protect the children and herself, but moments like when Ethan knelt to adjust Malik's shoelaces or laughed loudly at Jaden's joke made her remember the man she once loved. As the time neared, the children looked at each other, exchanging silent glances, a conversation only triplets would understand. Malik, the spokesperson, turned to Maya. "Mom, can we see Dad again?" Maya looked at Ethan and then at the children, her voice soft but firm. "If you want to, and if Dad continues to prove he's worthy of your time." Ethan nodded, his gaze sincere. "I'll try every day, Malik, Jaden, Isaiah. I promise." When Maya led the children away, Jaden turned back and asked loudly, "Dad, do you like science?" Ethan smiled, holding up the science magazine. "I love it, son. Next time, you teach me, okay?" Jaden nodded, satisfied. Before getting into the car, Isaiah whispered to Maya that Dad looked sad, but not like a bad person, Mom. Maya stroked his hair, her heart heavy. "I know, baby, but we have to be careful." On the drive home, Malik asked Mom if Dad apologized for what he did. Maya looked into the rearview mirror, seeing 3 curious pairs of eyes. Dad has apologized. But apologies aren't enough. He has to prove he's changed. Jaden piped up. Like the experiment, right? There have to be results, not just words. Maya smiled, surprised at her children's wisdom. That's right, Jaden. And we'll be watching for the results. Ethan sat back on the park bench, watching Maya's car disappear. He held the soccer ball, feeling both joy and pain. His children, intelligent, strong, bearing his and Maya's features, had given him a chance. But Maya's cautious gaze reminded him that the road ahead was still long. He remembered Dr. Sarah Nguyen's words during their last therapy session. Atoning isn't about winning them back. It's about becoming someone they can trust, even if they never forgive you. Ethan was determined, not for Maya, but for Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah. Meanwhile, the investigation into Hillcrest made new progress. Langston's forged documents were found in the records, and a group of lawyers examined Eleanor's responsibility. Though she was battling cancer, the legal noose was tightening. In her hospital room, Eleanor looked at photos of her 3 grandsons, Malik, Jaden, Isaiah, whom she had never met, and for the first time, she felt the actual cost of her manipulation. She knew she would have to face Maya, not to ask for forgiveness, but to acknowledge her guilt, a step she wasn't ready to take, but could no longer delay. One Thursday evening in April, the drizzle blanketed the brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, where Maya Johnson and her 3 sons, Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah, were enjoying a cozy evening. Maya sat on the sofa, reading with Isaiah, while Malik and Jaden played chess at the kitchen table, their laughter and banter creating a symphony of family life. When the doorbell rang, Maya thought it was a delivery, but when she opened it, she froze. Ethan Caldwell stood there, drenched from the rain, without an umbrella, no makeup, and none of the power she once wielded to destroy her life. Instead, she appeared frail, her silver hair tied, her red-rimmed eyes swollen from crying. "Mrs. Johnson," Eleanor whispered, her voice broken. "I need to talk to you." Maya gripped the door handle tightly, her instincts screaming to slam it in the face of the woman who had paid to lock her in a psychiatric hospital while pregnant. But the weakness in Eleanor's demeanor made her pause. This was no longer the proud woman who had despised her for her race and background. This was a woman torn apart by guilt. "What do you want?" Maya asked, her voice cold but controlled. "I want to tell the truth. I'm sorry, and I beg for your forgiveness." "I know I don't deserve it," Eleanor responded, tears mingling with the rain. Before Maya could answer, Malik's voice came from behind her. "Mom, who's that?" She turned to see her 3 sons standing in the hallway, their curious eyes mixed with suspicion. Maya took a deep breath, knowing this moment would shape how her children viewed family and forgiveness. "Children, this is your grandmother, your father's mother," she said softly. Jaden, with his usual bluntness, stepped forward. "Why is she crying?" Eleanor knelt to their level, her voice trembling. "Because I did very wrong things. I hurt your family, and I'm very sorry." Holding a history book, Isaiah asked quietly, "What did you do wrong?" Eleanor looked at Maya, silently asking for permission. Maya nodded slightly, her tone firm. "Children, go upstairs and do your homework. I need to talk privately with Grandma." The boys reluctantly left, but not before Malik whispered to Jaden. "She looked sad like Dad had when we met him at the park." Maya led Eleanor into the living room, where family photos and the children's drawings hung on the walls, evidence of the life she had built from the ashes. Eleanor stood in the middle of the room, her eyes sweeping over the memories she had no right to share. "You've raised wonderful children," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Intelligent, kind, beautiful, everything a grandmother could dream of. And I've lost the right to know them. Sit down, Maya said. Not kindly, but not cruelly either. Eleanor sat at the sofa's edge, as though she didn't deserve to be comfortable. She pulled a thick envelope from her handbag and placed it on the coffee table. I paid Langston $300,000 to falsify the medical records and convince Ethan you weren't pregnant and that you had a psychological disorder. I hired a private investigator to follow you, documenting every step of your pregnancy while telling everyone you were crazy. I planned to lock you away in a psychiatric hospital forever to take your children. Maya felt the familiar rage bubble up, but beneath it was a strange sense of relief. The truth was finally being spoken. I already know everything, she said coldly. Ethan told me after he thought you were dead. Eleanor shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I should have died. Cancer. But chemotherapy saved me, and now I have to live with what I've done. She pointed to the envelope. This is the evidence. Bank receipts, contracts with Langston, and photos of you during your pregnancy. I kept them because I was proud of my intelligence. I was proud to manipulate my son, to abandon you. Why? Maya asked the question that had haunted her for 8 years. Eleanor cried openly, because you made Ethan happier than I ever could. You're strong and honest, a black woman who overcame all the prejudices I used to despise you for. I was jealous, Maya. I couldn't bear losing Ethan, so I destroyed you to keep him. Maya stood, her hands trembling with rage. You locked me up when I was carrying your grandchild. I gave birth alone because of you. I raised them for 8 years without a father because of you. Eleanor nodded, her voice broken. I know. I destroyed the most beautiful love story I've ever seen. I can't give back those years or the chance for Ethan to witness the birth of our children. She pulled out another file of legal documents. I've moved all my assets into a scholarship fund for the children. Not enough to make up for it, but it's all I have. Maya said money doesn't fix what you've done. Her voice sharp. Eleanor stood up and walked toward the door. I know. I came here not for forgiveness, but because you deserve to hear my truth. You're a wonderful wife and a wonderful mother, and I'm a cruel woman who destroyed your happiness because I couldn't stand the beauty of it. She paused, turning back. Please, don't let your hatred for me stop Ethan from having a chance with the children. He's a victim of mine too. Maya looked at Eleanor, searching for signs of manipulation, but she only saw sincere regret. She responded, I'll decide what's best for the children based on them, not my feelings about you. Eleanor nodded and opened the door, the rain still falling outside. You're better than I ever was. The children upstairs are a miracle. You gave them the love I never gave Ethan. After Eleanor left, Maya sat in the living room, her mind in turmoil. Light footsteps echoed. Isaiah appeared at the top of the stairs. Mom, is Grandma gone? Maya nodded, her voice gentle. Yes, honey. Go upstairs. I'll be right there. Isaiah nodded, but his gaze was thoughtful. Did Grandma make Mom sad? Maya knelt, hugging him. She did the wrong things, but she's trying to apologize. I'll tell you more when you're older. Isaiah nodded but whispered, I think she regrets it, but I want Mom to be happy. That evening, Maya called Ethan. Your mom came to see me, she said, her voice weary. She told me everything. It's worse than I thought. Ethan was silent, then responded, I'm sorry, Maya. I'll do everything I can to make it right. Maya sighed. Come to my house after the kids are asleep. We need to talk. When she hung up, she knew the battle for her family wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope, not for her, but for her children, who deserved a father who had learned to put them first. After the emotional confrontation with Eleanor, Maya Johnson's brownstone in Brooklyn Heights returned to its normal rhythm. But a subtle change began taking shape. Maya, the black woman who had built an empire from pain, started to feel the cracks in the walls she had erected around her heart. Over the past 8 years, she had lived for Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah. Still, Ethan's meeting with the children and Eleanor's confession forced her to confront a difficult question. Could she open her heart again, not for Ethan, but for what her children deserved? Now living in a simpler apartment in Manhattan, Ethan Caldwell continued his journey of atonement. He understood that apologies or proof of his mother's wrongdoing were insufficient. Maya demanded action, and he was determined to deliver. He became a volunteer football coach at the children's school, never revealing his identity as their father. He funded scholarships for underprivileged students, ensuring Maya never received any notification to avoid any sense of manipulation. The letters he sent to Maya were now brief updates. Malik kicked a powerful ball today. Jaden won the science prize, and Isaiah told me about the new book he's reading. No pleading, no demands, just a silent presence. Maya, in therapy sessions with Dr. Angela Brooks, a black therapist with a warm voice, began facing the pain of betrayal. "I'm scared," she admitted one evening, the soft light of the office surrounding them. "I see Ethan changing, but what if I'm wrong about him again? I can't let the children suffer like I did." Dr. Brooks nodded. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Maya. It's about allowing yourself to move forward with clear boundaries." "What do the children see in Ethan?" Maya smiled sadly. "They like him. Malik says he knows how to play football. Jaden says he's smart. Isaiah says he tells stories well, just like I used to think." With the sensitivity of 8-year-old boys who had grown up without a father, the children became an unexpected bridge. One evening, as Maya helped Jaden build a model of the solar system, he asked Mom if Dad had done wrong, but was trying to make things right now. "Would you give him a chance?" Maya paused, holding the Mars model in her hand. "Why are you asking that?" Jaden shrugged, his eyes curious. "Because Dad seems like he wants to be close to us. I don't want him to make you sad, but I want to know him." From the kitchen table, Malik chimed in. "But if he makes Mom cry, we don't need him." Isaiah, reading his book, looked up. "Dad is trying, but Mom is more important." The children's words made Maya reflect. She realized they didn't just want to know their father. They also tried to protect her, a maturity that made her both proud and heartbroken. She allowed Ethan to see the children more often, but always under her supervision. The park visits became a routine. Ethan played football with Malik, discussed science with Jaden, and read books with Isaiah. He didn't try to be the perfect father, but listened, respecting Maya's boundaries. One rainy afternoon, when Maya's car broke down outside the children's school, Ethan happened to drive by after football practice. He hesitated before stopping. "Do you need help?" Maya, tired after a long day, nodded. Inside the car, with rain tapping on the windows, they sat silently for a moment. Then Maya spoke softly. "Thank you. You didn't have to stop." Ethan looked straight ahead, his voice sincere. "I had to stop, Maya. It's the right thing to do, not because I want you to forgive me." Silence returned, but this time it was gentler. Maya broke it. "The children often ask about you. Malik wants to know if you're good at football. Jaden asks if you understand science. Isaiah wonders if you like reading books." Ethan smiled, tears welling up. "What did you tell them?" Maya looked out the window, her voice low. "That I don't know who you are now. The man I married could answer those questions, but you must show them who you've become." When they arrived at her house, Ethan caught a glimpse of the three boys peeking through the window, Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah, watching their father with cautious curiosity. Before Maya got out of the car, Ethan said, "I don't expect forgiveness, Maya. I want to be someone they can rely on. I'll prove that, no matter how long it takes." Maya looked at him, her brown eyes softening slightly. "Do that, Ethan. For them." In the following weeks, Maya noticed Ethan's changes were not just in words. He showed up on time, never pushing the children or her to reciprocate affection. He respected the boundaries, which made her uneasy, not because she doubted him, but because she saw traces of the man she once loved. During a therapy session, she confessed to Dr. Brooks, "I still love that man, but I'm scared. 8 years is too long, and the wounds are too deep." Meanwhile, the investigation into Hillcrest progressed, with Langston's forged documents being publicly revealed. A group of lawyers began suing Eleanor for complicity, though she was fighting cancer. In her hospital room, Eleanor received news that her documents, the ones she had given to Ethan, had been leaked, pulling her into the legal whirlwind. She looked at pictures of her 3 grandsons, knowing that even if she survived cancer, she would never escape her guilt. One evening, as Maya walked Ethan out after reading with Isaiah, she unexpectedly asked, "Do you think you've changed enough?" Ethan looked at her, his deep blue eyes sincere. "Not enough, Maya, but I won't stop for Malik, Jaden, Isaiah, and you, even if you never need me again." Maya nodded, saying nothing, but when she closed the door, she felt a glimmer of hope, not for love, but for a future where the children could have both a father and a mother, with boundaries built from truth and trust. On a Thursday evening in April, the silver moonlight poured into the brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, lighting up the living room, where Maya Johnson and Ethan Caldwell sat together for the first time in 8 years, not as enemies or strangers, but as 2 people trying to find what was lost. The evening began with a bedtime story, as Ethan, invited to stay after playing football with Malik, told the children Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah about lost nights trying to find their way home. The boys, lying in bed, their eyes shining, were drawn into the story, and Maya, standing at the door, felt her heart both aching and healing. After the children fell asleep, Maya and Ethan went down to the living room, a space filled with family photos and their children's artwork, proof of the life Maya had built from the ashes of betrayal. She poured 2 glasses of water, sitting across from Ethan, her brown eyes cautious, but no longer cold. "I've been watching you with the kids," she said, her voice calm. "You're on time. You listen to them. You don't force them to love you. You're becoming the father they need." Ethan looked at her, his deep blue eyes full of emotion. "I'm trying, Maya. This is not to win you back, but because Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah deserve a father who knows how to put them first." Maya nodded, her fingers turning the glass of water. "I know. But 8 years is a long time, Ethan. For 8 years, I lived with the pain of being abandoned by my husband and locked in a psychiatric hospital while pregnant. 8 years later, the kids grew up without their father." Ethan lowered his head, his voice choked. "I know, and I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life. I failed you. I failed them when I chose my mother over you." Maya looked at him, and for the first time, she saw sincerity without any calculation. In her therapy sessions with Dr. Angela Brooks, she had learned how to face the pain, and now she realized that holding on to it didn't protect her or the children. It only imprisoned them. "I used to think love meant never making mistakes," she said slowly. "But I've learned that love is about what we do after we make mistakes. It's whether we learn, grow, and become someone worthy of the love we've lost." Ethan lifted his head, his eyes sparkling with hope mixed with fear. Have I become worthy, Maya? She smiled softly, her brown eyes gentle. You're on your way there, and I'm willing to find out. She stood up, stepping closer to him. Ethan stood up too, the distance between them narrowing, and when her hand touched his, time seemed to stop. He bent down, and they kissed, one carrying the weight of 8 years of separation, the pain of betrayal, and the fragile hope of redemption. It was both gentle and fierce, an apology and a promise. I love you, Ethan whispered, his lips against her forehead. I never stopped, even though I didn't deserve you. Maya inhaled deeply, her voice trembling. I love you too, Ethan. But if we start over, it won't be the same. Ethan nodded, gently squeezing her hand. I know. You're stronger, wiser, more wonderful than I ever dreamed. And I'm different too. I'm the man who's learned that love is about trust, not control. I'm the father, not just the son. Maya smiled, tears rolling down her cheeks, but they were tears of hope, not sorrow this time. Then we can be different together. We can build something better than what was lost. They sat down again, hands intertwined, talking about the future, not with grand promises, but with small plans. Ethan would continue coaching football, and Maya would take the kids to watch. They would have dinner together as a family, but with clear boundaries. If we start over, Maya said, her voice firm, you'll have to fight for us every day. When it's hard, when others try to pull us apart, when the world says we don't belong together, you'll have to fight. Ethan looked at her, his eyes blazing. I will, Maya. For you, for the kids, for everything we've lost and everything we can build. I'll fight every day. When Ethan left, Maya stood at the door, watching him drive away under the moonlight. She felt a lightness, as if a weight had been lifted. The children, sleeping upstairs, would wake to a family learning how to heal. Malik, Jaden, Isaiah, these smart, strong boys, carrying the love of both her and Ethan, were the reason she opened her heart, and she knew they would be the center of any future they built. Meanwhile, in her cold penthouse, Eleanor Caldwell received word that the lawsuit against her had been filed, with the forged documents she had provided Ethan exposed as evidence. Though her cancer had subsided, she knew she would never escape the legal or moral consequences. She set up a scholarship fund for Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah, not as a way to atone, but as a final act to acknowledge her grandchildren. She lived in loneliness, honored by the high society, but rejected by her family, paying the price for her manipulation. The next morning, Maya took the kids to the park, where Ethan was waiting with a football. Malik rushed up, eager to challenge him to a shootout. Jaden pulled Ethan aside to show him the science model he brought. Holding a book, Isaiah asked Ethan if he wanted to read with him. Maya stood watching, her brown eyes gleaming with pride. When Jaden asked Mom if Dad could stay for dinner, she nodded, smiling if you wanted him to. Malik chimed in, "But Dad has to wash the dishes." Ethan laughed loudly, his gaze meeting Maya's, and in that moment, they both knew that even though the scars remained, their love, tested by betrayal and time, was strong enough to rebuild. Under the early morning sun, their family, Maya, Ethan, Malik, Jaden, and Isaiah, played in the park, their laughter echoing like a promise. 8 years of pain couldn't erase the past, but it had taught them that true love isn't perfect. It's about continually fighting to become the best version of each other. Outside the window, the moon gave way to dawn, illuminating a family once broken, now learning to become whole, day by day.